and welcome. So today we're going to be talking about rats changing color, which might be a bit of a weird one, but I've actually been getting some questions about this recently over on my Instagram, so I figured, why not? Let's talk about it. So there's a few reasons why this could be happening. Let's get into it. So the first is, if you're new to rats, these are your first rats, it could just be that they're coming in like fully into their adult coat and adult coloring. Chances are they'll already have their adult coat, or at least be out of their baby coat when you get them, if you get them from a reputable breeder. With pet stores, it really depends. I don't recommend pet stores, but they do tend to sell rats kind of young. So whether or not your pet store rat will be out of their adult coat is questionable. But yeah, so a lot of rats will change color as they age. Like some it's just a lightening of color, some it's getting more pigmentation. So like, for example, my rat Welsie, when I got her, she just had the black splotch over her eye, and then as she aged, she got coloring around her ears and on the back of her neck and head. And then there's rats like my rat Rook, or Siamese rats, pointeds in general, but Siamese for this example, where as you can see, they kind of start out this cream color and then they develop into the pointed Siamese look as they age, as they get out of their adult coat. And so if you have more than one Siamese, you'll also notice that their points change very frequently. I have two at the moment who live in the same cage, and they are constantly switching whose nose points are larger, whose are smaller, whose butt's darker, whose butt's not darker. This can be affected by the weather as well. Like in winter, I believe they're a little bit darker than they are in summer. So you might notice that as well. I personally, when I have only one Siamese, I don't notice much of a change because that's just my Siamese. But since I have two right now, I do notice a lot more because I'm constantly looking at their faces being like, who is this? So, But yeah, so it's very common for babies to change as they get older. Usually, around 4 to 6 months, their coat color should stabilize, and that should be just kind of how they look until they get a little bit older. Another common cause of coat changing color is them being an older rat. So some of that is losing fur. So like my rat Humdrum, for example, when she was a baby, she had really dark fur on her face, and then as she got older, the fur started to thin and she looked more of a grayish color. So that can happen. They actually do go gray. So here's an example with my rat Riff Raff. When she was a baby, she was a very dark, like a little black abyss of a rat, and she only had just the teeniest, tiniest beard, white beard basically. And then as she got older, she lost the white because her entire mouth went gray. That's happening with Ezra right now as well. You'll notice this on older or darker rats a lot more often than you will on lighter rats because they have more pigmentation to lose already. But yeah, like with black rats, you'll notice them starting to, they look more gray basically. So that could very well be what is happening with your rat. Another thing that would be causing this is what variety your rat is. So there are several varieties that do change very frequently throughout their life. So over Siamese, for example, and once they're into their adult coat, that's just kind of how they look. They don't change too much. But then you have rats like a roan rat, for example, where they start out black or gray, and then as they age, they become paler and paler and paler until a lot of them end up just looking white, or like a black-eyed white, which is a completely different variety. But yeah, they just look white sometimes. Now, roans will change color at different rates, so it's not an indication of how old they are based on how white they are. Because like Orby, for example, a lot of roan rats her age would be completely white, but she still has a lot of pigmentation. She still has a lot of black fur, but it does look more gray now because of how old she is and how much she has faded. Another variety that can change if you have a poorer quality of Silvermane. So most Silvermanes will look, so a high quality Silvermane will just kind of look like Fitz does. He's had that same coloring his entire life. He hasn't changed at all. But then you have a poorer quality Silvermane, like for example Sailor, who had almost virtually no silvering when I got her, and she was in her adult coat, but she had almost no silvering versus what she looked like when she was a lot older. And as she got older, she became more and more and more silver until she was just this very pale, still not great quality Silvermane, but very pale silver color. And then we have Hex, who started to silver out after I got her spayed. So that changed her coat color a lot too, but the silvering is natural to their variety, and it can just change their coat as they get older. And this is more common in poorly bred Silvermanes. As far as I know, a properly bred Silvermane does not get more and more silver. They just are silver once you get them. Another variety that changes a lot is martens, actually, depending on the kind of marten you have, because like I have Honey, for example, who when she was born she was charcoal gray, and now she's more of like a medium gray, but that was just natural coat, her coat naturally changing color as she got older. But a lot of martens do actually pale out a lot. So this is my friend's marten. And as you can see, started out very medium gray, looking a lot like Honey, and she is now paled out to more of a grayish brown, a really pretty color. And a lot of martens do that. I have seen some that start out like Honey's color and then pale out to more of a foggy color. And that is just part of the variety. Not all do this. It's a variety that has a lot of variation within it. So like Foggy is a marten, and Lamb's a marten, and Honey's a marten, and my friend's rats are martens, and you can even have a Tonkinese marten, which is a basically they start looking like Hopper, and then they pale out to look more like Foggy. So it's a lot of different colors and variations, but it's the same variety. So if you get a marten and they start to change color, that is normal.
As a last minute addition, my friend on Instagram reminded me that there is another variety that also changes color that's called a snowflake variety, and basically they start out black and then they start to develop white spots, kind of like a reverse Dalmatian.
And finally, the last variety I'm going to be talking about for this section is something called chinchilla, which I had to talk to one of my Instagram friends about this. So, but yeah, chinchilla is a variety where they start out looking very agouti, which is a brown color that has 3 different colors on each hair. So they start out looking agouti, and then they pale out over time, losing the yellow pigmentation until they look more blue or gray. So it's not a very common variety. I've never personally seen there's only a couple of breeders that still breed for it. So I've only personally seen one that might be a chinchilla, and that is, again, from my Instagram friend. So chances are, if you get this variety, it's going to be deliberate. You're going to be getting them from a breeder. But I have seen varieties end up in rescue that you would never imagine. Like I've seen martens, I've seen roans, I've seen Silvermanes, like everything else I've mentioned on this list I have seen in rescue. If you get the chinchilla variety, they will probably be from a breeder, and you will know going in that they're changing color. So I wouldn't assume your rat is a chinchilla if they're not directly from a breeder. And finally, the last reason that your rat might be changing color is they have something called rusting, which is where they start to lose some of the color in their coat. And to me, it always has looked like this kind of orangey brown color, which is why it's called rusting. And it's caused by a copper deficiency, which you can correct by adding either vitamins such as Daily Essentials 1, or you can supplement them with fish or mushrooms, which have a lot of copper and can help them get their normal color back. Rusting can also be caused by poor genetics. So you'll see it most often in like darker rats, like brown, black, blues, like those kinds of rats. So minks as well, gooties, like those kinds of colors, it just pops up more because they're already darker, and it's just easier to see the color changes. So poor genetics can cause the rusting, and there's not much you can do about that. So just make sure they have enough copper in their diet, and if they're still rusting, then it is probably genetics. It can also be caused by aging. So the pictures I have put up are from my rats, my triplets, Heidi, Riff Raff, and Sailor. And as they got older, they did start to rust a lot, as well as go gray. So like they're gray in the face, they're brown on their butts. But yeah, and again, there's not much you can do about that other than, you know, keep taking care of them, give them all the supplements that they need, make sure they're strong and healthy, and just accept that they're a little bit brown. It can also be caused by an overexposure to sunlight, in which case just stop doing that. You really probably shouldn't be taking your rats outside anyway. It's not something I recommend because they don't really get anything out of it. They're a prey animal, they're not going to be comfortable with it, and the amount of diseases they can catch outside of your house is not insignificant. Not to mention where I live, we have stray cats and coyotes and foxes and a lot of hawks. So it takes 1 second for your rat to become food for something else if you're not careful. So yeah. Anyway. So those are some of the reasons that your rat might be changing color. For the most part, it's nothing to worry overly much about. If you feel like they're rusting, just get them supplements. Otherwise, just enjoy your rat and keep taking care of them the way you normally would. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. All the fun stuff down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!